Hello, creeps. It's me, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and you're listening to Chronicles from the Crypt.
Hello, kiddies. It's me, Casualty Chris.
And this is Father Malone.
You can't even follow that one, can you, big fella? You can't even. That was pretty good. I've impressed myself.
That was a very good impression.
And we are the hosts of Chronicles from the Crypt, a twice-a-month look at the horror anthology series that you and I both love most of the time. Tales from the Crypt, that aired from 1989 to 1996.
Now, on each of our podcasts, we do 2 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, and along the way in between, we do lots of Tales-related ephemera, tangentially related, if you will. And but not today. Today, we are rounding the bend. We are almost there. We are at the penultimate, almost, of season 5.
And the tail end of season 5. The downward slope, as they would say. So we're going to be talking about episodes 9 and 10 of Season 5, Creep Course and Came the Dawn.
Hello, creeps. I'll be with you in a moment. I was just in the middle of cramming for my final exams. Bet you didn't know your pal the Crypt Keeper was still in school. As a matter of fact, I'm at the top of my class at Harvard. Which brings us to tonight's All-Frighter. It concerns a couple of college kids who've got their own ideas about higher education. In a bit of academia I call Creep Course.
Creep Course is directed and written by Jeffrey Boehm. It stars known registered sex offender Jeffrey Jones. Sorry, we have to mention it. Get it out of the way now. Also stars Anthony... Hey man, someone's got to, because you know what? You don't get away with shit like that. Even if you're an actor. Even if you were in, 2 movies that people liked. And a ride at Disneyland that was taken away from us way too soon.
I love that ride.
But here's the thing. That ride, he got replaced by Tim Curry on that ride, so...
Well, that's pretty good.
Who won there? We won as humanity.
We won. Absolutely. But is it still a ride? Probably not.
No, oh god, it hasn't been a ride for years. Now it got replaced by that Stitch ride, and then it was replaced by nothing. And now Disneyland's closed. So, there you go. It also stars Anthony Michael Hall, heartthrob of the 80s, Anthony Michael Hall, and Nina Samasko. So...
Yes, Nina Samasko. We're going to talk about her.
Yeah, we're going to talk about her because, let's not kid ourselves, she's probably the best part of this episode, because this episode is not great.
I like this episode.
How?
I did. I liked it. It's enjoyable.
How, though? It's like
fun.
It's dorky, right? It's almost the problem with these Tales from the Crypt episodes is they telegraph the twist, and then they make it seem like they make it seem like you should have been surprised by what the twist is.
Which twist are we referring to? Are we referring to the Anthony Michael Hall is in cahoots with Jeffrey Jones twist?
Yeah.
It shocked me.
No, it didn't.
It did.
Really?
I had never seen this episode before.
How have you never seen this episode before?
I don't know, man. But I will say that it got me. It was the best part of the episode for me, honestly. No, that's not true. Nina Samasko is the best part of the episode because I love Nina Samasko. Since we're talking about this particular episode of Creepy Course, this is not, surprisingly, a Tales from the Crypt adaptation. This is actually Haunt of Fear number 23, written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, the stewards of the EC Comics ship, and was drawn by Graham Engels. The basic plot remains the same in the comic book, with some slight variations. There is no Anthony Michael Hall character in the original comic book. It is a girl who is a terrible student. She is taking an antiquities course, and she figures if she seduces her professor, she'll be able to get a good grade. She shows up at his house. Instead of Egypt, we're talking about ancient Rome originally, because he's fascinated with ancient Rome. And when he takes her down into his basement, she discovers, in fact, that he has recreated the Roman Colosseum in his basement. And then he sits as Nero, effectively, and watches while she is torn apart by wildlife, tigers. And then she wakes up because it was all a terrible dream, and then goes to his house, and he brings her into his basement, and she's relieved that there's no Roman Colosseum there. Instead, there are Egyptian artifacts everywhere, and he reappears for a moment, like dressed as an Egyptian, and he's extolling the virtues of mummification. So, I think the original comic is a little bit better than what we got as an episode, a little more interesting in some ways. At the same time, I had a fun time with this one. What can I tell you? It didn't. I didn't feel insulted while I was watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst episode of the show that I've seen. It's just dorky. The whole thing where she's essentially not even intimating, she more or less says she sucked a mummy's dick and fucked a mummy. I mean, the problem with her character is you don't get the sense that her character is deranged. And then all of a sudden, Jeffrey Jones comes back into the tomb, and she's like, yo, I fucked this mummy. And it's like, wait, what? Like, where'd this come from? Like,
hey, man, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive.
I appreciated that, though, because, again, that's the Tales from the Crypt edge that I think the show has been kind of missing off and on. It doesn't push that line. It kind of just strays away from it from time to time, and it doesn't go...
Would have been good had we actually seen it, though, right?
Okay, well, calm down, big fella.
No. I mean, look, my adoration for Nina Shamasko aside, like, that would have been a boundary-pushing kind of moment. Instead of just, she puts on a hat and convinces a mummy that she's his lost love, right? I mean, I don't know. We're in season 5. We can kind of do no wrong at this point. Like, why not go for it?
I mean, to your point, this episode might have benefited if it had really pushed the line. Again, also, let's not kid ourselves. This is a trope that I don't like, and I'm sure you're not a fan of either. Oh, the bookish girl when she takes her glasses off is beautiful. Get the fuck out of here with that.
Yeah, that's a constant problem.
Right?
I mean, even with the glasses, she's adorable.
But you put on some loose clothing, you put on some glasses.
Hey man, there are bookish girls out there who are, not sure of themselves, right?
Yeah, but it's a trope. It's a trope. It's a trope that's overused in film and TV. Sometimes it's even the entire plot of a movie.
Well, at least this beat She's All That to the Punch. Is that what we're talking about, that movie?
I mean, I think that's the only movie that I can think of that actively uses that. She wears glasses, now she doesn't. Trope.
It's funny. I remember Martin Short talking once, like on a talk show a million years ago. I think he was talking about Inner Space, as a matter of fact, because his character is kind of a nerdy character who's not sure of himself. And he said, at least there isn't a moment where I pull off my glasses and suddenly I'm a handsome man. I guess the trope has been around much longer than we assume, but here it is on display.
Once again, for the whole world to see. I mean, look, it's not a terrible episode. I don't think it's much. I mean, again, the problem is I've seen this episode before, and maybe that doesn't help. Because I remembered every single beat. I remembered the beat where Anthony Michael Hall is puking up his guts, literally. And
wow, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Butthole. No, yeah, I mean, that part's great, where he's, like, puking up his guts and oozing guts out of his butthole. Like, that's pretty gross. That's pretty gnarly, but, I mean,
And I gotta say, pedophilia aside, the entire episode is acted really well.
First off, any conversation that begins with pedophilia aside.
Oh, sure. I'm just saying, we have episodes that are not so great, and they're made worse by not so great entertainers performing in the roles. In this one, everyone is acting at the top of their game, including Anthony Michael Hall. He kind of disappeared for a while after his John Hughes heyday, but he's always a good actor. I believe him as it's so funny because he was known as the nerd and the dork and the guy who could never get a girl. And then that kind of morphed into the jock dickhead character. He played this. It's effectively the same character he played in Edward Scissorhands. So interesting. He's an interesting guy. I like him. I wish we would see more of him, even if he's being murdered by the Joker.
Yeah, well, he didn't die,
didn't he? I thought that was.
No, he survived. Batman saved him. No, Batman saved him. He is one of the characters that Batman saves. Yeah. That was one of the weird things about The Dark Knight was why is Anthony Michael Hall in this movie?
Yeah, it was super jarring. All of a sudden, here's the geek from 16 Candles.
Yeah, I didn't get it. He was also in The Dead Zone, which is a criminally underrated TV show.
I agree. I really liked that show when it was on. That's criminally underrated. That's a pretty good description.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anybody talking about that show at all, period, ever, the end. I'm not even sure people know that show exists, frankly. Well, it came out in that weird time where, like, there were shows like it on, like, The Invisible Man on Sci-Fi, stuff like that, narrative storytelling shows on channels that were ostensibly known for rerunning other shows, not creating their own original content.
Yeah, everyone was trying to jump on the X-Files bandwagon there for a while to greater and lesser degrees of success. But I like Dead Zone. I thought it was good. That's a good premise for a show. It's one of my favorite Stephen King books. I love the David Cronenberg film, and I thought Anthony Michael Hall was really good on that show. I think Anthony Michael Hall is really good in general.
Yeah, I like Anthony Michael Hall. He's a very good actor. I would 100% agree. But let's talk about something that might not be so good. Came the Dawn.
Good evening, creeps, and welcome aboard Tales from the Crypt Scare Lines, Flight 666, offering direct service from your living room straight to hell. As we will be experiencing some turbulence, we recommend that you keep your seatbelts fastened and your vomit bags handy. So slip on your dead set and get ready for tonight's in-fright entertainment. It's a nasty tale about my favorite kind of ghouls. Dreadheads. I call it Came the Dawn.
So Came the Dawn is directed by Uli Edel. It is written by Ron Finley. It stars Brooke Shields and Perry King. Perry King is a millionaire who offers a lift to Brooke Shields, and they go to his cabin, and all is not what it seems. And God, is it offensive?
I don't think I didn't feel offended by the episode necessarily.
I just felt it felt like the last episode. It felt a little cheap.
This one, to me, is far more cheap than the previous episode. At least in the previous episode.
No, the last one is minor cheapness. This is like, oh, it's a guy dressed up like a woman. Isn't that weird and scary? Like, no,
yeah,
it's not.
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that.
That's like the whole episode is predicated on a guy dressing up like a woman. Isn't that scary? Like, no, it's not at all. And it's not something that needs to definitely be demonized.
Yeah, look, man. There's a rich history of cross-dressers and or transsexuals being the villain because they don't know who they are and they're messed up in their head.
Yeah, dude, Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, but Sleepaway Camp's fun. That one at least lays down a layer of how twisted that particular character is made to be, as opposed to somebody who's just sort of naturally feeling like they're not themselves, you know?
Well, I'm not deriding Sleepaway Camp. I think Sleepaway Camp has one of the better uses of that trope. This, on the other hand, not even close. And again, I don't even understand why Brooke Shields is in this episode. You could have cast anyone opposite Perry King. Anyone.
Hey man, Brooke Shields likes to work, okay?
Well, I'm gonna drink your blood.
This episode is bad. I did not enjoy it at all. Speaking to that not a Tales from the Crypt episode, not at all shocking to me. This is actually shocking. It is Shock Suspense Stories from number 9. Once again, written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein. The artwork was by Wally Wood, who is a fan-fucking-tastic. If we haven't mentioned Wally Wood, and if you haven't sought his artwork out, please do so. Wally Wood was amazing. Comic, to me, was leaps and bounds above what we ended up getting. It's about a guy who shows up at his cabin in the middle of nowhere in the woods and discovers that there's a woman inside his cabin, and she spins him a yarn that she had been on vacation and went for a walk and got lost in the woods, and it was raining, and so she ended up in his cabin. They end up spending the night together, and when she goes to sleep, he hears a radio broadcast that says that there is a lunatic loose in the woods who fits her description. As soon as she wakes up, he kicks her out of the cabin, and what transpires is that she ends up screaming for help and being murdered by the actual murderer that the broadcast was about. It wasn't her at all. It was pretty good. The episode, however, is real bad. It's really bad.
It's not... It reminds me of that episode from the first season of the show. Or is it the first or second?
Oh, that one.
You know which one I'm talking about?
We're talking about Lover Come Hack to Me?
Yep, the one with Amanda Plummer.
It certainly echoes that, in the very least, in the fact that the villainess at the end is carrying the exact same axe as that original episode.
Yeah, yeah, man, raid the prop department back at the Warner Brothers lot, or what?
Hey, do you guys have an axe? We have this one you used like 5 years ago. Sold!
Yeah, it's not great. It's one of those episodes where I remember it way more distinctly than I have any reason to, and I don't know why. Because I really don't like it. It feels cheap. Perry King, he's well cast, I guess.
I guess so. I don't have any issue with Perry King as an actor. I've enjoyed him in other things. He's fine here. Everyone's actually okay. It's just that the episode is, at best, a passable entertainment.
And again, it feels like they're trying to really do like a gotcha moment at the end. And if they're not showing a female's character in a horror movie or TV show, if they don't show a female character's face, and there's a possibility that a male character is impersonating a female character, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, we certainly got it here.
And also in that Brian De Palma film. It's very similar to the De Palma film. Was it Dressed to Kill?
Yeah, except
that movie's good.
Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, that movie works because Brian De Palma is one of the best filmmakers of all time, and he is skillful. That's a movie look, I watch it every year. I really adore the movie. I have, in the past couple of years, been a bit conflicted about my enjoyment of it because of the same issue present here, where, it's easy to just sort of fob off a murderer as a crossdresser. But, look, De Palma does it like a fucking master, and this does it like nothing good at all. Like, honestly, it's not the most egregious part of the episode.
No, it's not. It's really not. The worst part of this episode is everything.
Yeah, I can't really put my finger on what bothers me the most.
Yeah, it is one of those episodes where I'm right there with you. I can't place what it is, but I really don't like it.
It ain't good.
And that's not helpful as a critic to say it. I mean, that's not really a helpful criticism. But there's just something about this episode that doesn't do it for me and verges on me feeling like I don't ever have any interest in watching this episode ever again.
This was my first time, and it will be my last.
Rightfully so, because there are much better bad episodes of this show.
Yeah, I mean, there are episodes that are sort of kind of insulting about plot that I would rather revisit. This one is bad. Sorry, everybody involved.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you because I don't know. I always remember this episode the same way. I remember that it's going to pull this really cheap twist at the end, and it always does, and my response is always the same. Okay, so what was the point then? Aren't people who cross-dress and or are transgender weird? No, they're not, and this episode feels cheap. And I don't like it.
So let me amend my initial statement and say that, yes, this is offensive.
It kind of is, right?
Yeah, I mean...
I would say it actually just full bore completely is.
It's a lazy screenwriting trope to just sort of blame the other. This thing that I do not understand, I've done no research in. Clearly, I got some form of understanding of psychology from pop culture.
He likes strong women, so he must be the woman himself. Like, oh God, come on. It's a really bad episode. I have no interest in talking about it anymore, and I really don't think anyone should watch it because it's one of the first episodes of this show where I can say without a doubt, like, there is nothing of value to be gained from this episode.
At least in the last episode, there was a supernatural element, which for me is the bar that needs to be hurdled. But in this case, if you're going to do a human drama, then give us something fucking amazing. This ain't it.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. So in the next episode of Chronicles from the Crypt, we're going to be taking a look at episode 11 and 12. Oils well that ends well and halfway horrible. And we're also going to be joined by John Kassir, yes, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. I did an interview with him a couple years back about his role in the episode and his feelings on the show as an entirety. So make sure to catch that episode. Until then, where can people find you, Father Malone?
You can always check me out on my YouTube channel, Ot5Films, OUGHT, Check out some of the shows I've got on there. You can also hear me over on Dreams for Sale, the Twilight Zone 85 podcast, the only reboot of the Twilight Zone worth a good goddamn. And once a month, you can hear me over on Chris's show, The Culture Cast, talking movies.
It's true. Once a month. That's your penance. Once a month. Yeah, it feels like it sometimes. As for me, Casualty_Chris on Twitter, Chronicles FTC on Twitter is where you can follow the podcast. ChroniclesFromTheCrypt.com is where you can find more episodes of the show. Give us a good rating on iTunes and Google Play. Every little bit helps our visibility. No, but seriously, we are the best Tales from the Crypt podcast out there. We've been doing this for a while, and we're about to get back to the episode where we restarted the podcast and then we restarted the podcast all the way back to the beginning. So I'm excited to get back to where we were 2 years ago. We've been coming back at this show all the way for our listeners. So make sure to check that out, that next episode. John Kassir, big thanks to him as always for doing the intro for the podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode, kiddies.